What's happening YouTube? It's Simon 466 Cards, and today we're going to talk about the Panini break-in at their headquarters from a couple months ago. There have been a lot of conspiracy theories that have come out since then. Who's stealing these servers? Who's stealing this data? For what purpose? All this kind of stuff. Full on tinfoil hat brigade is out and about on this one. I'm going to come at this from a different lens. I'm coming at this as someone who works in cybersecurity, which is what I do in part of my day job, and explain how if Panini has the right controls in place, none of these conspiracy theories can actually happen. So a little bit of a different bent on this one than you might see in the hobby. So I thought this might be interesting content. Let's talk about what actually happened. So I have this from Sports Collectors Daily. This article, or this snippet, talks about how 4 servers were stolen, storage drives, electronic equipment worth X number of dollars, and then down here they're talking about how a computer expert here is talking about how they're after the data. So let's talk about what data is actually on these servers and what the conspiracy theories are saying about what might possibly be on these servers. So one is they're saying they're trying to steal trade secrets. It could be things like pack odds, redemption information, even the codes to identify which serial numbers have specific cards in them, like the downtowns or kabooms that we saw that conspiracy theory a while back. And so the first thing is this information, if it's trade secrets, it wouldn't just be on any server for anybody to view, right? They would be password protected and all that kind of stuff. There'd be a system in place so that to access this information, even if you stole the server, you wouldn't be able to get that information. But then there's been another conspiracy theory on top of this break-in that possibly some people behind it were the people that moved from Panini to Fanatics and Topps. Obviously a big loss of people from one company to another. So I'm here to tell you that in cybersecurity, there's this thing called privileged access management, which basically just says the only people that have access to information, data, are the people that need to have it as part of their day jobs. So for something as sensitive and confidential as trade secrets, pack odds, redemption information, serial number stuff, whatever it may be, obviously highly sensitive information. So not everybody's going to have access to it, not everybody in the company. And so these people should not have access to it unless they had it as part of the day jobs. But these people have also left the company. If, again, in theory, it was these ex-Panini employees. And as part of privileged access management, or a good privileged access management system, controls, and policy, you should have a movers and leavers policy, which basically says if someone leaves the company, if someone moves from one department to another, they no longer need to have the information, the access to this information, then you should remove all that access, right? And so, again, if, John Smith moved from Panini to Topps, well, they've been gone a couple months. We should have killed all their access to, in terms of IDs, passwords, all that kind of stuff. It should be all purged from the system. So that was my first thought when I heard about this this people stealing information conspiracy theory. If you have the right controls in place, it shouldn't be a problem. It's a very similar thing to stealing customer information. Again, stealing customer information, one of the biggest concerns of any company, Panini, Hobby, or any other company out there, right? And so the same privileged access management, PAM is what we call it in cyber. The same PAM policies about movers and levers, all of that is in place and holds for this one as well. But customer information is particularly sensitive, especially something we call personal identifiable information, PII. And so that's things like serial numbers. We're talking things like credit card numbers. We're talking things like even addresses, and so on and so forth. And for data like that, information like that, it should be even more cordoned off than just trade secrets, because there's a lot of reputational damage that can occur if that comes out, because you've lost all this very important PII information. And so as a result of that, sometimes that data can sit on a dedicated server or dedicated part of a server or whatever, and people have to use a completely separate ID to log into it. But sometimes, because it's so unique, like you versus me versus the guy sitting beside to us, if we all need to have access to it, we might not have 3 different IDs. We might not just share the ID for this information, because there's no point in really differentiating between the 3 of us. And so sometimes these systems have something called shared IDs, but because they're shared IDs, there is a password rotation in place to ensure that it's not possible for someone to steal that password. It's not possible to steal the login ID. And so making sure these passwords are rotated every generally 1 to 3 months is part of a good privileged access management policy for things like customer information. So again, if Panini had the right cybersecurity controls in place, customer information loss should not be a problem. Last thing, they're again tied to the kind of, I guess, continual loss of employees from Panini to Fanatics. There's been this theory that, well, there's been some incriminating information or emails for these people who left as part of the, I don't know, courting process, as part of the process of leaving from one company to another and taking the trade secrets with them. There's, some lawsuits in place, and who knows whatever else is happening as part of these lawsuits and agreements that have happened in court, right? And so, someone that moved over may be like, oh, there's some shady stuff I did back in the day when I was there as part of my move here, and I maybe emailed stuff to myself or emailed stuff to Fanatics that I shouldn't have, and I got to delete those those emails from the server, so I'll steal the server, right? That's the theory. Here's my problem with this theory, and this is the one I have the biggest problem with. Good companies have policies to ensure business continuity and ensure that they can recover from any type of disaster. So we're talking about whether there's a fire, there's a tornado, power's gone out, flood, a riot or whatever, a nuclear disaster. Every large company, or even small company, but every well-run company should have these type of controls in place to ensure that business can continue in case something happens, basically. And so that's why, to me, most emails that you or I send, they're not just on a server somewhere, they're in a cloud, right? They're not just like, oh, I steal the server and this email just poof disappears. That's not how this should work. And so I find it hard to believe that this isn't backed up in the cloud somewhere, or just there's an offsite that has a backup of all the emails. That's not just in the office. Like, that's just poor form if they don't have this one. So like, of all these 3, this last one is so bare minimum basics that I find it hard to believe that they wouldn't have done this. Having said that, those are the 3 main conspiracy theories I've seen. I think the third one is the least likely because of what I just talked about. But this also depends on Panini having the proper controls in place. Here's the thing. I don't think Panini is a well-run company. So it's entirely possible that they do not have the controls in place, and this was part of it. But if they do, all of these could be mitigated. So that's it. That's the video. I would love to hear your thoughts. It's obviously a different type of video. Does what I'm saying make sense to you? And I think that more importantly, do you think Panini has the controls in place that I've just talked about here? Because that is a symptom of a well-run company, which honestly I do not believe they are. And so it's one of those things where it's like, well, if you did this, it'd be fine, but do we believe you actually did this? I don't know. I would love to hear your thoughts. As always, we preview the next video. Next time out, we're going to talk about how Scotty Barnes might have delayed the release of 2021 Panini Flawless Basketball. So thank you, as always, for listening and watching, and I will talk to you all soon. Cheers.